I grew up in Tassie and grew up diving with my parents. You'd swim out from the boat ramp and there was giant kelp all through there, and you'd do an amazing giant kelp forest dive. Going back 5 years later, 10 years later, and it just gradually disappeared, and then all of a sudden it's gone.
I moved to Hobart in 1973, so about that time when we started diving in here. Fortescue Bay from the south shore, right across into more than the middle of the bay, where it drops into sand again, was all thick forest. So thick, it was just dark underneath. It was a different environment altogether. So there's no way you could drive a boat through it.
Mick Barron's boat used to be full of tourists, eager to dive amongst Tasmania's famous giant kelp. Over the past few years, he's instead been ferrying teams of scientists who are trying to regrow those now vanished forests.
This is the baby giant kelp that we're outplanting today. We've collected the reproductive tissue here, we've released the spores in the lab, and we've settled it onto this cotton cord. We'll tie it off onto the reef, and those kelps will grow onto the reef, and as the cotton cord breaks down, they'll attach themselves to the rock and take off from there. But once they're on the reef, they grow phenomenally fast. So these things double in size every week.
Today, the divers are also checking up on some of their previous work.
It's looking really good. Yeah, the established kelps, the ones that we've had down for 2 years, are looking really healthy. They're up at the surface. And there's a whole bunch of fish up in the kelp swimming around it. There's a whole heap of cute little nudibranchs, sea stars, urchins, all sorts of beautiful things swimming around down the kelp.
Fortescue Bay is one of 10 sites along Tasmania's southeast coast that have been earmarked by researchers as suitable for restoration. The planting teams are trying to give the kelp as good a foothold as possible before summer, because the threats that killed the original forests haven't gone away.
When people ask me, what's caused it, the cause is climate change. So it's higher temperatures which slow the growth rate down and restrict the peak growing season, and less nutrients, so it's more difficult for it to grow.
Karen Gallard-Holmes is a marine biologist who has been watching the decline of the kelp over many decades. She says the seas off eastern Tasmania have been hit by the combined warming forces of climate change and a shifting southward of the East Australian current.
Our little area off of the Tasmanian coast here is one of the fastest warming places in the planet in the sea. And so this is really a hotspot.
The kelp that has been replanted is selected from the remnant 5% that wasn't wiped out by the warming oceans. Therefore, the restoration team believe it will be more genetically robust into the future.
Anything that's survived until now is actually, by default, quite resilient, quite tolerant to all that's come before it. And so it is those remnant populations that really do provide hope.
In addition, the East Australian current, which famously helped Nemo's dad head south to Sydney, also helped a predator migrate from New South Wales to Tasmania.
Long-spined sea urchin was first discovered in Tasmania in the late 1970s. Our most recent survey, there was over 20 million long-spined sea urchins along the east coast of Tasmania. Our waters in Tasmania have warmed enough to allow the larvae in the sea urchin to survive.
The sea urchins are voracious and they love giant kelp.
So this one's sort of a medium-sized urchin. They do get a fair bit bigger than this. They have these super hard teeth structures that they use to grind away the reef surface, consuming all of the seaweed in its path.
To give the kelp a fighting chance, it's crucial as many urchins as possible are removed from the area before the planting takes place.
Commercial divers over 5 fishing days removed 73,000 sea urchins from the Fortescue Bay area. So yeah, 73,000, over 22 tonne of sea urchins.
Many of these divers used to fish for abalone or lobsters in these waters, but have turned to urchins as other species were pushed out and the market for urchin has taken off.
They get dissected, the sea urchin roe extracted, preserved and sold to international markets. There's demand there, and we're steadily harvesting from Tasmanian waters 500 tonnes a year.
A box of urchin roe like this sells for around $35 and is particularly popular in Japan. In the name of saving the reef, divers are encouraged to take as many as they can.
It's not a situation where we're going to be able to walk away and, oh yeah, it'll look after itself, because we're dealing with these more and more years where the kelp suffers, so we'll have to keep on planting some out there. But we are seeing natural regeneration in the good years as well.
I'm really concerned about what this summer will bring. I mean, the characteristics of the ocean temperatures we've seen this year around the world and what is forecast for Tassie are the exact conditions where we've seen these losses of giant kelp forests in the past. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands of species that live in our kelp forests in Tasmania and around southern Australia that do not occur anywhere else on Earth. If we do nothing, we will lose them. Okay, there's not many left, they're not recovering on their own. If we do nothing, it's a sure thing that they're gone.